Finance Committee meeting to order. It is currently 6:45 p.m. I would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $598,023.75, manual check in the amount of $6,000, payroll and liabilities for 11/19 of 21 for the amount of $486,120.26, for a total of $1,090,144.01.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Bailey and a second by Councilwoman Salisbury. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Is there anything additional that this committee needs to consider?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We call this meeting adjourned at 6:46.
I now call the December 7th, 2021 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilwoman Salisbury will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will give the invocation.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're extremely grateful for the many blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful for this land that we live in. We're grateful for the veterans that protect us and for our police officers, and especially on this day of tragedy 80 years ago, we are grateful for those men that serve and have died and gone before us to lay their lives on the line for our freedom. We appreciate that, and we hope to live up to the promises that they have left us, that we might be good members of this union. And we ask for thy Spirit to be with them, that they might know that we appreciate their sacrifice in our lives, that we might teach and show those around us the importance of liberty. We're grateful for our police officers, and we ask you to watch over them and to take care of the sheriff's deputies and so that they can do their work and be successful in it. We're grateful for the citizens of Riverton. We ask you to watch over them and lead and guide them. We ask you to help us this evening that we might make wise decisions, that we might have the constituency in mind and the betterment of Riverton. We're grateful for the opportunity to be here and ask for thy Spirit to accompany us. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Dean Pronto.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Cox from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion and Councilwoman Borders has the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. I declare a quorum is present. Approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Council discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on another item may speak now. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, we'll move on. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, November 16th, 2021, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, December 7th, 2021, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for December 7th, 2021. And approval of the municipal court report for the months of October and November 2021.
Thank you. Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee met this evening, and it was moved to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $598,023.75, a manual check in the amount of $6,000, payroll and liabilities for the 19th of November 2021 in the amount of $486,120.26, for a total of $1,090,144.01.
Who got the 1 cent?
I think you did, sir.
All right. It's a raise. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders has the motion. Councilman Peranto has the second. Council discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of ordinance number 21-016, second reading, accessory building definition. Would the city clerk please read the, excuse me. There should be an insert there. Do we want to turn that over to any discussion from the staff?
Your Honor, I do not believe we had any modifications to it at the previous, so generally speaking, we do not have additional reports on the second.
So if I'd stay on script, it'd be all right, huh? We'll just move forward there then for the consideration of ordinance number 21-016 on second reading, accessory buildings definition. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 21-016 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 21-016 on second reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.08 definitions, Section 17.08.010 accessory building of the Riverton Municipal Code and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 21-016 on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has a motion, and Dean, did you second?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Peranto has the second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passed. Public hearing to consideration of ordinance number 21-017, first reading on Buffalo subdivision rezone at 1802 West Sunset. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. City Ordinance 21-017 is a rezone for Lot 1A of the replat of Buffalo subdivision. Background discussion. Buffalo subdivision was originally platted into 2 lots in 2011. It is located north of Sunset Avenue and west of J.C. Park. In 2014, BB&C Enterprises Incorporated replatted into 2 lots to create access to Lot 1 from Sunset Drive. Lot 1 is zoned residential R2, and Lot 2, later replatted into 3 lots, is zoned commercial C1. This request was considered by Planning Commission on 11/25/2021. Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the request to City Council. BB&C Enterprises is now wanting to rezone Lot 1A from residential R2 to residential R4 in order to develop and/or market this parcel. Signs were posted on the property and notifications sent with responses attached. Among these, 10 total notifications were 2 formal against statements from existing landowners notified. Under Riverton Municipal Code 17.04.050.e, with 20% or more of the notified parties against, a 5 affirmative vote is required. I attached the code in the packet for reference for everybody's information as well. Prior to BB&C Enterprises rezoning request, a request to rezone was submitted by Northwest Real Estate Capital Group as a part of a low-income housing tax grant. They were notified that this request needed to come from the current landowner. The city was also asked to provide a letter of reference that the property was in rezone attempt for submission with their grant application. Drawing and details of the proposed housing are attached, as well as communications on these topics. Alternatives for council today, we can, an alternative would be to reject the request for a rezone or to direct staff to research other options as desired as part of the rezone. Budget-wise, there is no immediate impact resulting from the approval or denial of the request as provided. And the recommendation at this point, the Planning Commission voted on 11/25/2021 to recommend approval of the requested rezone.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 21-017 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 21-017 on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Riverton, Wyoming, designating the rezone of Lot 1A, Block 1, Final Plat, Replat, Buffalo Subdivision, City of Riverton, addressed as 1802 West Sunset Avenue, to the City of Riverton, Fremont County, Wyoming, from residential R2 to residential R4.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilwoman Borders has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I now declare a public hearing is open. The public hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Just one at a time. Oh, I'm teasing.
You guys both stop like. You have to leg wrestle to
take
see who
both.
goes first.
Good deal. Smart move on your part.
Your Honor and Council, we are part of the owners of Buffalo Subdivision located on Sunset, as Michael had said. It is currently zoned R2. We are requesting,
Could you give us your name for the audience?
I apologize, my name is Josephine Gilpatrick, and
Thank you.
I apologize.
Josephine, will you pull the mic down closer to you, just so they can hear for the TV?
We have a big audience. We want them all to hear.
Sorry.
We're just requesting a simple rezone. Northwest has applied for a grant through the municipal grant program for the state of Wyoming to possibly build a facility at that property. This is not the first time we've been approached to sell this property. We purchased this property in 2003. This would be the third attempt for someone to build on that property. If you don't mind, I'd love to walk over to this map. I believe this is the current zone map, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe it is. It's as current as we have.
So this is the parcel we're talking about, this little yellow piece right here in this sea of green with no other residential property anywhere near it. That little yellow piece of property was zoned initially under a different zoning process at a different time. R2 doesn't seem to fit in that sea of green. And we have been unsuccessful in attempting to sell that property as a residential home site. R2, I believe, currently allows for a duplex, and then it all has to be replatted again to subdivide it out to put more properties on that. But I don't know who really wants to build a family house on that one little yellow piece of property. So, going back further, currently in Riverton, there are only 2 other undeveloped properties zoned R4. Both of them are in that relative area. One is a 1.3 acres located at 1350 Sunset Drive. I do believe that a foundation or the footers were initially put in. That project was stopped. It was too small to put in something other than maybe a house or 2. That is also located on Sunset. The other parcel is located on 8th Street, just south of Bach Storage. It is 7 acres. It is not the frontage that views College View. It actually is on 8th Street, and it's pretty swampy back there. It is not currently listed for sale. So at this time, the only other parcel that is currently listed for sale as R4 is the 1.3 acre parcel. There are no other R4 undeveloped properties within the city of Riverton. Going to the master plan, which I believe is something that you utilize quite substantially, the master plan addresses the growing population and the lack of rental properties available and the increase in housing prices. The positive economic development garnered by the city, congratulations and kudos to all of you because you guys have worked really hard at this. Legacy Molding is needing many new employees. A new sportsman warehouse is under construction. A potential new hospital with up to 114 new employees will be needed if that goes through. It too is stuck in the grant process, just like the Northwest grant process. Whether this comes to pass for Northwest or not, I don't know that we, the landowners, care. It's time to make this property the right zoning for that location. In addition, the old Letty's Big R building was sold recently, and I believe you guys have an agreement with them that they have to maintain at least 25 employees within the Fremont County. If not, our understanding for the newspaper is that your agreement requires an audited process, which I'll come back to in a moment or 2 here as well. The current master plan on page 14 states that the #1 goal for land use is to encourage a mix of housing types, increase opportunities for constructing quality multifamily residences, encourage blended and small-scale infill development. This is your master plan that I believe you guys operate off of. The goal is to encourage a mix of housing types, and that's on your page 14. Again, there's no other property up in this area. Owl Creek is there. That parcel's not big enough to put something as magnificent or as big as the College Hill Apartments, which we keep coming back to often. The infrastructure is currently in place to move that into an R4 zoning, which would then accommodate townhouses, a duplex, or a couple other smaller rental type properties. The 20% negative vote was by one man, Mr. Moss. Mr. Moss currently owns the C1 property that fronts Sunset next to ours. He currently lives in Cody, and that property, although we respect his desire not to have it changed or rezoned, he does not reside in Riverton. He doesn't spend a lot of time here in Riverton, and normally we get called by someone to mow the weeds, and we mow normally the bike path on his property as well to keep the weeds down in that area. And we did receive, I believe, and Michael can verify this, we did receive from 3 other landowners in favor of this project. The biggest one being School District 25. School District 25 Board of Directors all agree that this rezone R4 was in the school district's best interest to help accommodate their staff and their students as well. So we believe that that now is a great time, given the improved economic outlook for Riverton, to rezone this property. It's the right size lot. It's the right location, given the surrounding amenities for an apartment complex, townhouse, or multi-duplex. Are there any questions that you would have for us?
Your Honor,
Yes. Kyle?
you spoke of a grant. I'm not aware of a grant for duplexes or unless it's for a variance of taxpayers' credits on property, other than the one property that's down on Redwood and Webwood. That was built with taxpayer-funded money, WCDA, and although it brought the vacancy rate down, it didn't bring any economic relief to Riverton. All the building materials, all the construction workers, the concrete came from Riverton, but that's about it. So, economic benefit, it benefited the person who owned it and received a tax break. City of Riverton didn't receive anything because we have to employ more police to watch over that area. So is that what that's what you're proposing?
No, sir, we are not. We are asking just for a simple rezone request. We own the land. We don't intend to develop this land. Northwest Development, I do believe, has contacted many of the people here in the city. He has applied for that grant money. He's the one that has proposed those plans. We understand that in the past that there have been some problems in the larger R4 zoned properties. Those properties, and maybe Mr. Tolstead can help us with this.
Excuse me.
I do believe that within the city codes, there are some ramifications for property owners if they don't comply with the penalty. There are penalties in the state or the city codes that if there's too much police activity, or I think you alluded to that to someone at the IDEA in court. Is that not correct?
Mayor, would you like me to?
Please.
There is in code the ability to, on 9.08140, it discusses disorderly house. Disorderly house is in a residence, if you'd like to look it up, is why I gave the reference, where illegal activity as denoted herein goes on at a particular rate. If identified at a particular rate, they can be given notice by the chief of police. So if any of the items are violated and convicted, 2 notifications within a 30-day period for any one unit, or 10 notifications within a 30-day period are required for the cumulative units within a complex. So an entire complex is 10 units within a month. At that point, the chief of police can give notice if that is met, and can then, if they fail to remedy or take substantive steps to actually remedy per the code, then they can be ticketed with a misdemeanor. That's a $750 fine, and they would appear on that one. So that does exist. I would denote, the only thing I would denote on this one is we use it very, very rarely. And the reason we use it very rarely is because if you read through it, the challenge becomes the tracking of those things, and it takes a significant amount of time. But it is a tool that is in the arsenal, if you will.
To address your other concern, Mr. Larson, I believe that we are just landowners. We're asking for a simple rezone. Again, going back to the zoning map, R2, a family home in that location, there's absolutely nothing else around it that matches that zone. The Owl Creeks are not too far away. Those are zoned R4 as well. And so I believe that when and if whoever, and I say if because, and I'm sure you know that as well as anyone, these grants are hard to come by. They're applied for by many people. And I think by Michael Miller's admission, this gentleman who wants to purchase this property was behind the 8 ball in applying for his grant. So but what's right for this property is what we're addressing at this point. I also believe that there are possibilities, so whenever anyone comes to build anything within the city of Riverton, they still have to come to the community development director. And at that point, stipulations or requirements could be put in place. As far as where they purchase their materials and all, I too love this community. I want this community to thrive and succeed. You know, there are so many statistics out there that, you know, at this time, the young people don't want to buy, they all want to rent, they don't want to commit. I mean, that's just, we could go out to the whole broader area of that, but I believe that there are opportunities for our community, for our new economic development that's coming to town, bringing more positions, thus needing more housing. I also think that if we enforced, and I think it's a little ironic, we used to own a commercial building here in town, and our cleaning lady was notorious for setting off the alarm, and that was on us. And we did get a $75 fine after 3 calls, and we paid that. So why, as an individual owning commercial property, do I get penalized with because of the greater tracking problems of these bigger complexes? And again, this complex is 3.6 acres. It's not big enough to put 200 units in there. The Owl Creek is 200 units. I also find it a little bit, we've done a little bit of research. The Owl Creek, there are only a few lots that are zoned R4. So on your zoning map here, R4 is the dark, dark green. So on this map, this is Sertoma, this is dark green. This property right here is that box storage one, what we're talking about. This is the little one that they tried to build an apartment on and it didn't go through. This is the Owl Creek. This little line right here is zoned R4 at the College Hill Apartments. I believe the greater problem that people are referring to is under the PUD and not under the R4. If you go to the tax records on that particular R4 location, those are actually individually owned per the county records. So the R4 that's within the College Hill Apartments is not owned by a greater company, it's owned by individuals. And so the problem up there is not reflective of the zoning, it's reflective of something different. And so to take what is occurring in other places and apply it to a raw piece of land, I think is a misuse. And we're just asking for a simple zone request, nothing more.
Any other questions?
I just have one question. Have you checked with some of the other low-income places, Owl Creeks and stuff, and how are their vacancy rates?
It's ironic that you should ask that question because we called the Owl Creeks, we also called College Hill Apartments, and we called, I think it's called Woodbridge down there. It's 90+ days, and the direct quote was, there is a lengthy waiting list for rental property here in town. There is no, there's limited rental properties available, and yes, things do come open from time, I mean, it's always gonna flux in and out, but kudos to all of you for the economic development. If we want our community to continue to grow, we better provide housing and opportunities. So whether this goes through with Northwest or not, that's not this question. This question is, does this property belong as a residential home in a sea of nothing but non-residential?
Anybody else? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And again, for us, the school district saying that they're directly in favor of this is huge because they own the majority of the land up there. And I believe that letter was included in the packet to the school.
Yep, we have it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Just brought yourself,
Yeah, I did brought myself.
Rick.
I'm Bethany, and I am a resident. I am also a member of the Planning Commission for Riverton. One of the points I wanted to add on to, I have a few tonight, but one of the things I wanted to add on, not only is that yellow triangle R2, it is also R2 that cannot have a cow per half acre, which all of the light green that is around it, all of that is residential R2A. which means that for every half acre of vacant land, a person can have a cow. You can't even have livestock on that property, which it's surrounded on the backside by farmland. There is no use for that as a single-family home, the way that it is zoned right now. The other part that I think that is important to think about, as a real estate agent in our community, the last time I checked, there were 20 houses under $200,000 available for sale in our community right now. That is not enough houses to bring in the people that even move around naturally in our community, let alone the people who are looking to come in here. And I think that it's important for us not to get so fixated on who might do what on a piece of land, but what other properties are in our town right now that we need to be actively getting ready for developers to look at as possible high-income apartments, or where are the doctors gonna stay? How much are we holding ourselves back in Riverton and stifling ourselves by just worrying about the what-ifs and who was? Because we're not in yesterday, we're in today, and we just need to be ready for the amount of people that are coming. I've been talking to many doctors that are coming to our area, and there's nowhere to put them. So what's gonna be the answer if we just stay in the past and don't pass this rezone? I'm fully supportive of this, and I hope that the council is as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Seeing no other takers, Your Honor, I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion, and Councilman Toronto has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 21-017 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Any discussion?
I appreciate the input. And in looking at that property, it is a little bit of an unusual lot. And not, I actually drove up there and looked at it, and it looks different on the map than it does when you actually drive up there and go, well, not sure that you would build a house on it.
Yep.
So,
I would agree that I think, we need more property like this so that we can have, our housing in Riverton, we're missing that piece of the puzzle. I don't think we have enough apartment type and rental properties because there is a huge call for them. And that's the natural progression of somebody, renting a relatively inexpensive apartment, moving into something a little better as they progress, eventually buying a house, and, and that's the natural progression. So if we don't have a place for them to start, we're gonna have a hard time getting them here, so.
That's correct. Anybody else? I have a lot of interest in this property, and I can see past, and I really do understand the real problem here today is just a rezoning. And it changes it from an R2 to an R4. And last time I was on the city council, I hate to mention that, everybody else seems to hate that too. I voted against this portion of ground being rezoned. I think that it has some real potential to be a problem. And so the traffic pattern in this location that we've spoken to on a number of occasions is difficult, at least. I'm glad to see the plan that was sent out because I couldn't put my head around 40 units being put on that location, and the plan that was sent out, I know it's just, and that's the real problem. Just changing the ground from 2 to 4, there's no sale there. There's no guarantee who's going to own that. There's no high-end apartments in anybody's mind. There's no necessary low-end apartments in anybody's mind. It's a zoning rechange. All you guys know me, and I am big into individuals' rights, and if you own something, you ought to be able to do what you want to do with that property. The problem that we had in the past, it's right across the street from the high school, the middle school. It's right up against J.C. Park, which, let's be fair, anybody, if a residential house was built on that property, they'd spend all their time on our playground. I would. I was young once, it's hard to believe, but I would be on the swings and in the pond and doing all the stuff that was over in J.C. Park. And so we're putting potential users to that park into place. We do need housing. Tony and I are out constantly busting ourselves to bring people to Riverton, Wyoming, and it's all about jobs. And it's about bringing people to Riverton and enlarging the city of Riverton. And we have to have potential for where people would build. Now, with that said, I think staff has some numbers of how many calls we get to, and I really don't care if they're PDU houses or if they're R4 or if they're R1. How many calls do we get to that facility at College View?
Your Honor, about 400 a year.
So that's a little over one a day. And so we have gone to work. Rick is a good friend of mine, and we've been friends forever and a day. And I would like to accommodate the citizens of Riverton, but I don't want to put the onus on the back of the police department either. 400 calls is more than one a day. One of our officers is up there taking care of that. And as I research this, I see this as a problem for the city council, for the 7 people that sit up here. Are we willing to put the disorderly house into place? And do we have the court backing to make it work? Because let's be fair, if something's developed on this, more than likely it's going to be federal dollars and low-income housing. It's not going to be high-end apartments. And so that's probably where this ends up at. And there's other things that we need to pay attention to. This doesn't all empty out on Sunset. It can empty out clear to Cooper Road and come out airport. There's ways to make this traffic work. Can we afford to put in what the master plan? I really dislike master plans. Everybody in staff loves master plans. My problem, Chief says he doesn't like master plans. Master plans, we pay $150,000 for at a minimum. They come to our community and they write down a bunch of stuff that they don't know anything about and leave. It's kind of like shooting the dead, shooting the wounded. And so the master plan has the way to solve the traffic problem on Sunset, putting in 2 roundabouts. Just drove through the big roundabout outside Jackson, and there were more tracks over the middle of it than around it. And so I don't know that that's an answer, and we can't afford it, is the other reality. And so I think we got to work together, and we got to get in front of these things. I'm all for the rezone of ground. That doesn't bother me. But we got to be prepared for what would come with the rezone. And with the rezone, we are probably going to have, and we've spent some time with the city attorney trying to find things that maybe putting a bond on it so the city could claim the bond issue if it was in disrepair, if the parking lot was bad, if there were too many calls. We've talked about, as Josephine mentioned, that if we get excess of calls, that maybe we could put a price per call on everything after the first 2 or 3 calls. I think all those things can be evolved, but they're going to be on us, not on the change of property. And I don't know that we're willing as a council to put those requirements on when they come about. It's really dangerous because everybody wants to, in today's society, we all want to jump up and call each other racist if we don't do what the next person wants. And I would love to have developers in Riverton that could afford to develop 20 units of property. That would be really nice if there were people that had the kind of money and that desire. And then they would buy the product locally, and they would hire local people. And the real problem is the money is going to come from out of town, and that's going to bring out of town product. They're going to bring it. And we see this really often at the state training school. We dropped $100 million on all out-of-state subcontractors and contractors. And we were told that it would be local people doing the work. Josephine, you got to come back up to the mic.
I'm sorry. And I know it just hit the newspaper real recently, and I just would like to let you know that, again, we're asking for the rezone, but our fabulous governor has received quite a bit of money, and says governor's call for ideas to make Wyoming thrive in the future brings big proposals and the money to follow. Number one of his big ideas include investing in housing, spurring more supply for workforce, working families, veterans, and the homeless. So, Mayor, you're a builder. There's money in our state right now for local people to come and build. And so the governor's putting that money out. He wants it. And that's his number one big idea right now is housing in the state of Wyoming. And so I think that, and I looked at this property, we've looked at this property. There are 15 properties zoned R4 in our city right now. 8 of those are owned by out-of-town people. 5 of those are owned out of state. One of the parcels that we do have in town is zoned R2 and has a 4-plex on it. Don't know how that really happened. Probably old zoning when it was built. It too is owned out of state. And so I understand the problems we've had in the past, but now's the time to address those problems and make them right. We hold our local residents and our local businesses to a higher standard than we hold out of state and or out of town people. And I think the time is now. There's money out there. Obviously, the governor's pushing it. And I know there's a meeting coming up here shortly that I'm sure you're involved in with the governor as well for these big ideas. And so I think that, yeah, this is a good opportunity for us, right? It's a good opportunity for someone who's in the state. Only 5 of the 15 parcels that are zoned R4 are owned out of state. The rest are owned all within the state, including the 4 are zoned R4 up at College Hill. I would also be interested to know, sir, is it not true that the College Hill apartments and the college are all considered in the same vicinity, and those calls, the 400 calls, does that include any to the college, or is that strictly to the apartments?
No, that's strictly to the apartments.
Good to know. So, anyway.
The college has its own security force, and so they deal with most of the college problems. Occasionally we assist them, but these are our problems. We let them in the door, and the door's got to swing open sometimes, and we've just not ever been terribly pleased with what came through the door as it comes to federal dollar housing. And Josephine, you're passionate about this. I understand your passion. The problem comes when the renter only has to put in $38 and the federal government pays the other $800+. And so that's the problem with federal assistance housing, is that there isn't any real buy-in from the low income because their rent is adjusted to their income.
Is that a zoning problem?
No.
Or is that a building problem?
No, but when we open this door, that's what zoning does for us. The city has zoning to protect itself from what's developed.
Okay,
That's
so
what that's
then
for.
There are no other undeveloped R4 zone properties in the city. Are you gonna go looking for more R zone properties?
You know me, I'm always out looking.
Here's one, we're offering it to you and you're saying no.
Well, but see, you want to look past all the problems and paint it as a rosy picture. And what I'm trying to point out is it's not going to be a rosy picture. It has to be governed and governed correctly to be good. And then as we do that, we get the label that we are not being fair to all the individuals in the equation. You're just the first one that wants to unload. Now, you bought this in, I think I wrote down 2003, and you had some idea that it would be profitable, and you want it to be profitable, and I want you to be profitable. And so I can't bring work to Riverton that's not profitable. It's not going to come if it's not profitable. And yet low-income housing, the reason it's profitable is not because of the resident in Riverton, but the government subsidy that comes behind it. And so that's why we have the serious problem of crime finding its way into those locations.
I believe that the city council is excited and assisting with a potential new hospital, which also is coming with grant money. With that comes 114 new positions. Of that, I believe 30 are going to be practitioners. Those 30 practitioners are going to be looking for housing as well. This property would be well suited for very nice townhouses back there equally as well, if someone wanted to come and build those also. And so for us, we're just asking for a rezone. The chance and the drawings that you have from Northwest, I have the ones from the last two people that came as well, if you'd like to see his traffic plans and what he wanted to build. But that never came to fruition either. And that was under a different zoning also. For us, if you look at that parcel, nothing else matches it in that whole area. The Owl Creeks are there. The Spire Apartments down on Monroe, I would love to know how many calls you get to the Spire Apartments, so Spire and
We get quite a few. I don't know exactly how many, but we do get called there quite a bit as well.
because that's more the size of the property that we have relative to the college homes. So I think there are ways, and we talked about that the other day, Your Honor. We talked about bonds, we talked about the fining process. We paid those fines to the city. It was our fault. We owed the money. It would seem that there is a way, but this is a zone request. This isn't talking about what's gonna be built there, who's gonna build there. That still has yet to come to you for approval. It has yet, those plans would still have to come to you. Those stipulations could be enacted at that point. This is strictly a zone request.
Your Honor.
Mike first.
Mike's first.
Mike first.
Yeah.
Again, looking at where this property is, I think the change from R2 to R4 is the best use for that property. Now, I agree there's issues with higher density, residents, okay? And I would fully support us looking and putting more teeth into the unruly house ordinance and enforcing that. I think that's a way to, again, get buy-in from the property owner who has a tendency to put tenants in there that the government's paying them to have them there and all that. So, I don't think we can solve all of humanity's problems with that, but I think that would help a lot. I don't think just not having R4 is going to solve the problem because there is a need for apartments. Like I said before, you got to start somewhere. I don't agree with the government's subsidization issues, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking what's the best use for that property where it is, okay? And I don't want to build a house and have it sitting next to the ambulance barn, next to a dentist office and a clinic. It's the stuff that's grown around that is not appropriate to put residences on. And, sometimes we fall into this, yeah, it's all great except not in my backyard kind of discussion. Well, this is not in too many people's backyard. I mean, if we tried to go do that down, I remember the Woodridge Estates, we filled the room multiple times with the Woodridge Estates zoning deal. And again, that one has not been as bad, I don't think, as College View. But again, It's not because what zoned it was, it's because of the kind of tenants that end up in a certain area.
I think on-site management is more appropriate, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I believe that we got fined by our cleaning lady for the calls from the police department. It was on us because they knew who we were. That's not fair, right? So on-site management would be huge in these apartment complexes. If I had to live next door to someone that was causing problems, I'd put a stop to it pretty darn fast. I think there are other ways to address, but that's not this conversation. This conversation is what is the best use for that land? And if you're gonna go out and actively seek more housing, we're offering you more housing on a parcel that is nowhere near a residential area.
No, you can't have it both ways. You can't sell us that it's just a rezoning and that it's gonna get us housing. So which is it?
But up at College Hill, the R4 that's up there is individually owned. And so, as is the Baptist church, that Baptist church is zoned R4 too. So someone could come and put a church there. This just opens the door for someone to get a little bit more creative. And you still get the last say in how and what and when it's built. Traffic-wise, size-wise, stipulation, teeth, you still get the last say because those plans still have to go through your department here.
Well, you have a little of that right. The reality of it, when we change it to R4, it opens the door for bigger projects. And so we start to lose our control. And so that's what we're talking about here. But it's a rezone, and that's what we got to keep in front of us. It's a rezone. It is not a development yet. Okay?
And you put teeth in the agreement with the new, I don't even know how to say the backpack company, right? So there are ways, you've done it, and you've done it successfully.
And that's what we're talking about right here between the seven of us, if we have sufficient will to do it.
We know you do, that's why we elected y'all.
Kyle?
The numbers that got to go in there to make that a profitable deal for some developer, that is only government subsidized.
Depends if the government.
No. I've been here too long, okay? And the government subsidy going in there, looking at that, the road on Sunset, it's a 2-lane highway, and we put in 2 8-plexes in there, and you're gonna have more traffic than that physically can handle. Okay? Now, that's what the 4 from 2 is gonna do. The second thing it's gonna do is, I understand the school district's looking at that as pupil count, okay? That's not a bad thing. But I look at it as a cleanup project. Because people, I own next to Woodridge. I employ people on a weekly basis to clean up my property next door to them. Now, calling the police department and all the other stuff, I understand all that, teeth and all that. It's still more expensive to me to have an R4 next to my property than it is an R2. Now, R2, that's why I'm here. R2, we can build duplexes. So College Hill was R2, all of it. And so they came in and they expanded that to duplexes. Then they took the 2 lots and then they mixed them together, A and B, and called it 3A. And then we built, 5-plex, 6-plex, 8-plex. And the people that had already built there, that was in their backyard. That wasn't in their plans. And they got mad as heck. And what did we do? We couldn't do a darn thing. We can do something about this. Now, I know, I would love to have you be able to sell it and make a profit on it. That's what it's all about. But when you're gone and we are still left with this problem, nobody's going to ever say the Gilpatricks were bad people for selling that. They won't even remember who owned it. but they'll point fingers at us for the problem. You cannot change the size of that road without, I mean, that's a major problem. The number of people in there, that's a major problem. You get in there at 8 o'clock, I don't know if you've been there recently, you probably have. You know the traffic pattern there. All you have to have is a problem up at the hospital and 8 o'clock and an ambulance coming through there.
Christie.
Thank you.
I hear your words. I understand. The last gentleman that wanted to buy it back in 2011, when you were on the council, he suggested making a one-way, so go in Sunset and out Peter's Door. Doesn't alleviate the problem, obviously, but then it gives them a chance to go to, up to Sunset.
College View.
College View.
Two ways out, right?
College
Peter's
View.
Door up to Rose Lane and then out that way was a new equestrian. So I think there are solutions. We absolutely are gonna have to get more creative. We want what's better for this community. We want more. We want more economic development, and what that brings new challenges for sure. Thank you
Christie.
for your consideration.
I guess I look at this a little differently. I've been working with federal grants for 27 years, and our community is full of high-rate, low-income people, and it's hard to get out of poverty. And it's hard to get a place to live. We have several single moms with children. We have people that need housing. Yes, Sunset is a mess, but it's a mess whether this is R4 or R2. I mean, at one point, we were gonna put the hospital kind of, and I'm like, no, the traffic and stuff. I think it would be great if we had mid-income housing or any kind of housing and stuff, but the problems are not gonna go away. Yes, it will be condensed in one area. The problems that are causing that have to be addressed, and there's no easy answers to any of that. So, to me, we need low-income housing, we need mid-housing, we need to provide for all the economic development, and we have needs in the community that have to be addressed, and they're difficult. So, that's just my point on it all.
Your Honor,
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Your Honor, question?
Dean?
What are the options, say this gets rezoned to R4, what options do we have as somebody, a potential builder, submits those plans? Does the council see that, or is it kind of a done deal and it can just get built through through planning? What options do we have moving forward if we rezone this?
Well, in simple terms, Gilpatrick's are successful in finding a buyer. They don't tell us who that buyer is. They sell that, and the next buyer shows up and says, I want to put 40 units on that piece of ground, and I'm going to make them 4 stories tall. You know, then we go to work, and that's why we get paid all the big dollars.
But what options do we have at that point? Do we have a way of limiting that building? Do we have?
I think we do. I think Rick, Josephine just pointed out a simple one, that you could direct traffic a different direction, right?
Okay.
Instead of letting it dump onto Sunset, it would dump the other direction. But we have to be prepared to go to work on those things. And I think we are.
Do we have the ability to limit the number of apartments or duplexes or whatever gets built there, or what?
Zoning covers most everything, and so I don't think you can build a 12-story building right there.
Okay.
But we would have to get the books back out, and Mike's good at that. He's diligent. You got answers, Mike?
What's the worst case scenario?
Your Honor, Counsel, if I may, once zoned R4, it would be used by right to building codes and standards to an extent. The city City Council would not see anything to be voted on as a development agreement or anything like that, because it's not quote a development, it's a single lot. So there is no current process that the city has for a development agreement on single lots. It's multi-lot developments, subdivisions, and whatnot, where we have those stipulations and agreements that occur. So currently, if any land use owner of an R4 lot were to come to my department with a design, as long as said design meets the specifications and of the International Building Code, we would, and they paid their permit, we would issue that permit for construction. There wouldn't be before council or anything like that. Without prior action from city before that were to take place. We would need city council action or an ordinance in place to recommend or develop that agreement prior to.
Tony?
Your Honor, thank you. We see this when we look at certain commercial zones. There is use by right, which is anything that falls within this area that never comes back to council or meets any other amount of scrutiny. Then there are certain sections of the code, not this one because I have it pulled up, that deals with, I think we see it in commercial zones, and we saw it, we discussed meat packing plants at one point, and there is a use by right, and then there is a conditional or an approved use where it basically triggers another approval process. So when Mike talks about modification of the code, it is possible to amend your code to put certain things in zoning into a separate process. As we understand it right now, for your clarification, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I don't believe the code currently provides for that in the R4. Does that make sense?
Does to me. You can spend all day in the code book, but you still got to make it happen on the piece of ground. So if you build something on that can't carry its own parking, you have to take care of the parking on site. And so you'd have to put a building, underground garage if you got 4-story apartments built there possibly. If it was high tech, you go to college towns like Rexburg, Idaho, and they're building 4-story buildings with 2 stories of parking below them. I think you need to get slapped back into reality. That's not going to happen on this triangle in Riverton, Wyoming. And so I think the developer that brought this is the 20 units that they put on there are probably pushing their luck right now. And the parking that they've got is sufficient. But we do have control on street access. We can put those requirements on, that it comes in on Sunset, goes out on Petersdorf. There's things that we can do but the door's open, and you just can't say, no, I don't like the paint color on that new multi-family dwelling that you're gonna put in, and stop it. And if the door's closed today in R2, we have there's less doors to get open.
So, Your Honor, is it possible then to put either change policy or amend existing ordinance so that the city council can have some say prior to the approval of plans?
We had a
How big of a deal is that?
We had a meeting with the city attorney, because we want Riverton to be safe, nice, all of those things. Sure. We want housing, we want apartments. We wanted to know what we could do. And after his research, he thought the disorderly house was the best device we had to control our problems as we see them today, as a policing problem, as a recurring policing problem. That has nothing to do with a zoning request. It has everything to do with what comes after that. Carla.
I don't know where to start. I've been sitting here listening to everything. Bottom line is, this is a zone change. We're not asking to build low-income apartments. It's a simple zone change. I think that we owe it to the people that we represent to make sure that they're not stuck with a piece of land they can't ever use. They should be able to do something with it. If it's not in place right now that we can make stipulations, then I think we need to make those. But I think just saying no, a blanket no, I don't think it's a great idea. I'm sorry, I just don't. I think that right now in today's society, we spend a lot of time, at least some people want us to live in fear. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to worry, oh, well, we're going to get this certain kind of people in here. Well, let's make those stipulations. If we want them to be maybe a mid-grade apartment, maybe some nice townhouses, more upscale, then there's that possibility. Right now, we're just saying no, and there's no possibility at all of anything. We're just saying no, and that's that. And I'm not good with that.
Your Honor, I've got to agree with Carla 100%. We're talking about two totally separate things here. So zoning is one thing, and that's how many houses or units you can stick on X piece of ground, okay? Well, that's one question. The real question that we're all having heartburn over is what the people on that live in that apartment or that house do when they're there, and that's for us to make sure we have ordinances in place that keep people from doing things that we don't want them to do. And right now, whether the police go to an apartment complex in a 500 square foot apartment, or they go to a house that's 4,000 square feet on the golf course, the behavior is what we don't want to happen. It doesn't matter where they're having the behavior, it's the behavior that we're trying to prevent. So to prevent, just say we're not gonna have any more R4 zoning in the city of Riverton and think our crime's gonna go away is unrealistic, okay? It's apples and oranges. And so when you stick 100 people in a small space compared to what one house would sit on that same space, you're probably gonna have 100 times more calls because you got that many more people there. And so, you know, to blame that all low-income housing is high crime is not really correct, but we do need to make sure we have enough teeth in our law that we can back it up and that we can make the landlord and the property owner responsible for making their tenants do what they're supposed to do. And again, get the government out of the picture would help, but that's never gonna happen because that's what it takes. And for us in the city to sit here and say that we don't want government subsidization is a little bit hypocritical because we ask for government grants to build our streets and our sewer and our water and our airport and all those kind of things. So, you know, I'd be the first one to say we all ought to get off the government's dole. But guess what? It's our tax dollars we're sending to them. So for us to use them in the way that they've prescribed till they change the law, we're gonna do it just like anybody else would, so.
Your Honor, regardless of this, I think we need to clean them up to deal with the problems we currently have. I think we need to do that work.
Yeah.
And I think that's we need to separate the two questions. And the reason we've done the research and to answer Dean's question, we've done the research to find out what we can do and what we can't do. And the city attorney recommends disorderly house as what we can do. So when we change this to R4, doesn't mean it's gonna sell tomorrow or who's gonna buy it. And we could get lucky and somebody could say, that's right next to the hospital, I'm gonna put some really high-end units in there and for doctors and bad ideas come along every day.
Your Honor, the reason for my question was if there was an ordinance change that had to occur before we changed the zoning, it might make sense to do that first and then do the zoning. It could sell tomorrow, you never know.
Well, the disorderly house, we can modify that any way we want. We could try to even stick in the call count that, and the other thing that we have checked into, Tony and I and Rick were in the room for quite a while. The statute allows us to cite the manager along with the owner. Now, lots of times the owner is not, he does that on purpose. He puts a lot of people in front of him so he doesn't get any calls about his stuff. But we can cite the manager. And that's the idea behind, and that's why Rick really thinks that this is the answer to not this problem, but the problem that we have throughout the city when we come across this. We've been in this room when it was full of people protesting, and we don't have it. We've had a wonderful job of working the backside of this tennis match. and no one's in the room protesting. Everybody's in the room in favor of it. And
Yeah.
so, that wasn't the case last time we had it. And so, what's changed? Maybe we need a lot more housing. I can't see hospital employees necessarily renting these units if they come in the way they're drawn. But somebody's gonna rent them, and it's gonna open up something else, right? And we want people to come to Riverton. And that's the object of our discussion. We do need to separate them. When you're a landowner, you should be able to do what you want with your land.
Yep.
And as long as you stay inside the zoning requirements, then my initial conference with Rick and Josephine was whoever brought this in and allowed it to be put into the city in R2 is the guy at fault. Not me, not them. It should have been looked at as something that this is not an R2 lot. It's behind everything, it's behind these are industrial, commercial buildings that it sits behind. I don't think any of us would build our dream home right there, even if you like J.C. Park.
Well, you do have a backyard already pre-created.
That's right. It's got a nice big backyard.
I mean,
And for me, it's right
Pretty
down
awesome.
to the baseball diamond, and so, it's a pretty good place. So we may luck out, but I think we need to have the wherewithal to have this discussion that it's on us to make sure that the next buyer does a good job of what he does. And we can do that today on the others. We need to enforce that. And I worry about our police officers. Nationally, this is a real problem. We send police out there to do their job. They don't even get the paperwork filled out before the assailant is back on the street. And we need to help and make those things happen. It has nothing to do with zoning. Mike's right. You can have a crime on R1. I've seen it. That's not the problem. Chief, you've seen that, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
So we're not talking about that. We just don't need to go into this blind-eyed with a bunch of smiles on our faces and realize we're not gonna have to work on this. All right? So we rode that horse to death?
All for the question.
Perfect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. Consideration of Planning Commission term modifications, Community Development Director's Report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel. The Planning Committee appointment schedule is, I recently come into the position and come into working with the Planning Committee, and towards the end of the year, we started to look at how many appointments that we had up. And basically, it wasn't how many we had up, it was how many members we had left after the 1st of January, which was 2. Ms. Valdez and another member were the only 2 active members. And what has occurred is there's been resignations and somebody comes in and is appointed to that position. And instead of taking on the term in which they're filling, they were appointed a new 4-year term. And that happened, it's happened subsequently over the past 12 years with the Planning Committee. And so this year, out of 11 members, including alternates, 9 of them were due in January 1 of 2022. And so to rectify the situation, first we do need to finish filling up some Planning Committee roles and positions, and are always looking for recommendations for those. But my proposal is to create a new appointment schedule and stagger them out 3 per year for three sequential years with 2 on the 4th year, to create that steady flow of members in and out of committee or council or out of the commission and Board of Adjustments, so we can keep positive flow of the community into that and information into that, and also reduce that load that would come in 4 years again when everybody is off of Planning Commission again. So What I have before you is kind of a simple schedule. The proposed reappointments are three appointees that expire in 2023, 3 appointees that expire in 2024, 3 appointees that expire in 2025, and 2 in 2026. And I've filled some of those roles in with active members that are, like Ms. Valdez, that are currently in Planning Commission, and that is when her appointment expires. And then Robert Scheidemantel and David Kellner they're re-upping, so I put them on for their full term. And there's some other appointments that we can fill in that. But, so I checked with the bylaws, with the Planning Commission and everything, and being appointed, City Council can approve new appointment schedules. So I'm bringing that new appointment schedule before City Council to approve, so we can continue to work in a more democratic way.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody have any questions? I do. What constitutes your alternates? We have 10 suggestions here, 10 appointment positions. Are you still going to stay with 2 alternates?
If we have, if we have enough members to warrant 2 alternates, I believe we would need to be above 8 members to need 2 alternates.
So do your bylaws, or maybe do we have bylaws?
We do have Planning Commission bylaws, yes.
It should be an uneven number, like we have council here, so that you don't get hung with a 4
Correct.
for and 4 against on an 8.
Correct.
So are you sitting on a 9-panel board?
Yes, we're sitting on a 9-panel board with 2 alternates.
And is that too big?
Currently, today, prior to a resignation recently, I was running with 9 members and 2 alternates on the Planning Commission. I don't necessarily know with my short-term working with the commission if that is too many members or not enough. I know that there's a lot of value in the diverse group that I currently have in the Planning Commission. Especially with the topic with the rezone and a couple other topics that we've had recently have brought up very good discussion. I think the number of members on there is sufficient. I don't think that it's a problem to fill. I just think that it's a problem to fill 9 positions in 1 month.
I don't think it's a problem to fill the positions, but we actually want to get people to take those positions. And I can go out and ask, and I will ask tonight again for people that are interested to fulfill those places. And we want a diverse group, right?
Absolutely.
We really do. We don't want we certainly don't want the room full of contractors. And so
We currently have 0 contractors on the Planning Commission.
yeah, and so we might be a good place to find one, right? So I think my questions are strictly, I come to your planning meetings and sometimes I see too many panel members. And when we vote on something, we have to knock back to 5. And so we don't, two or 3 or 5, 3 get up and sit in the audience and the other 5 vote. Yeah, could you please? You got to come up to the mic again.
There's 2 things going on there.
And Rick will come with you if you need any moral support.
I'm Bethany Valdez, now on Planning Commission. So what happens when we knock back to 5 is we're actually changing to our adjustments, and so it can only be, it's a public hearing and it's only 5 members. So when, what I've seen of having a bigger group of people is it makes it easier for us to hit quorum if we have absences, so that we're not having to reschedule people when they're working through their zoning and we don't have enough people to show up. And so I think that that's the benefit in having a bigger group. And when we have to change into our Board of Adjustment, that's just the bylaws or statute that we have to follow at that time. So it's a completely different board, and we only have the one Planning Commission that fills both shoes in our community. So that's what's going on with that. that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just, my question was simple, but maybe you wanted to not have 9 on the panel. Could you change that and go to 7?
Your Honor, I could. I was not, I was not taking that on right now per se. I was hoping to fill the 9. If I was unable to fill the 9, I would look to move the number down to 7.
I think we can find them. We just need to know the direction. Tony?
Mayor, just as a point of information, Planning Commission is set up in code would require, the modification
Requires,
would be an ordinance change. It's not a complex one, but it's just for your information. That would be the method that you use.
and the ordinance states 9?
Your Honor, it does. 9 permanent members and 2 alternates.
Okay, let's just stay with it. Thanks, Kristen. That's why we keep you around.
Thanks.
Faster reader than the rest of us.
Your Honor.
Mike?
And again, I spent, I think, 12 or 13 years on the Planning Commission, and so
Look what it's done to you.
I know, just, so, I don't want that to deter anybody from thinking they want to get on there. But it is one of those unsung jobs that get done within the city that are tedious and very, very important to what we do, as we talked about tonight, okay? I think when I was on Planning Commission, we went through all of those zoning laws and sort of brought them up from 20 or 30 years prior to that. And it took us 2 years to get through them all. I mean, it's, there you go, yeah, so, yeah. So, you know, so I would highly recommend somebody that's interested in government and development of the city and all of those things that we all think are very special. Well, a lot of that sausage making happens in Planning Commission. And so it's a very, very important piece of what we all do, not diminishing any of the other committees because they all have their own job to do. But it's an extremely important job and it affects, you know, realtors and contractors and landowners and all the things that we get to deal with on a regular basis, and that's where it comes from. So I think we really need to get a good, diverse group of people. And yeah, staggering the terms, I think the city probably needs to look at all of our committees and make sure we do have staggering terms so that we don't end up with, 3/4 of the committee leaving at one time, which is, I think, what we're running into today. So I strongly support what Mike's bringing forward to us, so.
Any other comments? Dean was on the airport board for 12 years. You want to show your scars?
There were a few, but, look at what happened once I got off.
Right.
So I'm just going to shut up. Finally hit 10,000 employments.
We're doing it, aren't we?
We are. Awesome.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the planning commission terms as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilman Paranto has the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Council reports and roundtable. Dean, would you start us off?
Certainly, sir. Last night, we had our Fremont County Rec Board meeting, and we had just kind of the normal payment of bills, but we also had we have an open board position that we'll fill at the meeting on the 17th of December, and then we also selected the volunteer of the year and the, what's the other one, Carla? It was the volunteer of the year and the
organization?
volunteer group of the year.
Group of the year.
So those were selected. I'm not going to tell you who they are yet, but those presentations will happen on the 17th of December.
Fabulous. Where?
Up at Fremont County School District 25 boardroom.
Boardroom. Don't we have fireworks that night?
Yes, Your Honor, 7 p.m.
Start off the
it'll be a
city
quick
council
meeting.
meeting.
So maybe stir that around so it works, or could you get the time?
I'll let them know.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that was it, sir.
Mike?
Thank you, Your Honor. again, I haven't had any official committee meetings since we met last, but I was at Rotary here 2 weeks ago, and Mike came and talked to us as the brand-new Community Development Director and did a great job explaining where he came from and what his ideas are on how he's going to do his job as Community Development Director, and I was very impressed, and I thought he made a great impression, and I think he's got off on the right foot to start with, and so I think it was impressive. He talked about dealing with the new Kafuru, is that the right way to pronounce it? Project Kafaro? And again, I like the way that he sort of goes in and looks for the alternatives so that the building and landowner, has their options in front of them so they can plan accordingly and to find the best way to, again, meet the codes, but yet be as flexible as possible to, save the customer and be able to get a project going. Because sometimes, as we've seen in the past, if we get too stringent with some of the items and just unflexible, sometimes that's going to cause a project not to happen in the city, and that's what we don't want to happen. So I was very impressed, so thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Carla?
Your Honor. Well, let's see. The Community Engagement Committee held we had the Christmas lighting, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying tonight, but it went really well. We had a lot of people that came. We served cookies, hot chocolate, sent off some Oriental lanterns. Santa Claus came. It was just a great night. It was great to see everybody out. We had music there, and it was great. This past weekend, CES had their Festival of Trees, and that was really nice. I think they did really well. They had 24 trees, I think, and I think there were like 5 wreaths on the wreath board, and it went really well. It was a great event. I was just looking through the calendar, and it looks like Sweetwater Garden is having a hometown Christmas Thursday night, December 9th at 4, for anyone that's interested to go there. Shopping, they have a photo booth with the Grinch, so it looks like fun. There's a sip and shop. Let's see where this is. December 10th, 400 South 4th Street in Riverton. Let's see, bring a friend and receive an extra entry. Christmas open house at the Riverton Museum. Saturday, December 11th from 10 to 4. They're going to have crafts, exhibits, and decorations. So there's plenty of stuff to do in Riverton, and I hope to see everybody out there.
Thanks, Carla.
Yep.
Kyle?
Last meeting that I attended was at the airport meeting, and that appeared to go quite well. Employments were beyond my wildest dreams 2 years ago. And I appreciate the efforts by the airport board, previous and present. Kyle's not here tonight. I think he's in warmer territory than we are now. But it just proves that when we decide to do something, we can do it. And that R4 is one of those things we can do. And I feel very positive that we're looking at that because as a board, we need to be active. As a council, we need to do the right things for the right reasons, not because we're against, but because we're for. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Christie?
Are you ready for me? It was a really long chamber meeting. It was like our yearly 2 or 3 hour meeting, but it's doing some really good things. The first thing is we had Helen Wilson from the Wind River Visitors Council come and meet with us. And I will say she's a new director, and we have a new chamber director with Janet. And both of those ladies came in with kind of a mess with finances just cleaning up after years of other things going on. And so I really appreciate all the work both of them have done. And Helen did a really good job explaining what's going on and where money's coming and going, which I can provide to you guys. They're having a really good year, a record-breaking year of money coming in. And for the last 2 months, Riverton received $21,000 for 2 months, which is great. But other grants were not applied for and other money was not applied for the chamber. So that's just breaking even, if that. So, but they're both doing a good job of getting that on track and knowing where the money's coming and going. I wasn't aware before 2018, the money was just given to Riverton, Lander, and Dubois, and after 2018, it changed and goes to zip code. So that splits where the money goes in a lot of different ways. We started doing a business of the month, which I think is a great thing for Riverton. We vote on a business, and then Murray with Jack FM goes and interviews them and puts it out on the radio, different places, which I think is really great to get the members involved with the chamber. Helen explained a few things that the Wind River Visitor Council, other than the money that's given to Riverton, that we can apply for to do bigger projects that might be some community or county-wide kind of things. And one of the projects for Riverton is getting bike racks to make it more bike-friendly kind of a town. That's kind of one of the big projects. And as a group in the chamber, we talked about lots of exciting things that are going on. And there's a committee that's formed that we want to designate for kind of big events that we know ahead of time, have a group working on it, because there's a lot of different people involved doing things, and apply for some money and grant money from the state and different things. And they've invited Tony to be a part of that, just to make sure the cities, we're getting what we can for tourism in Riverton. So I think that's really going to be exciting, because lots of people come up with a lot of ideas and they're like, oh, that's a great idea, can you do it? And then you're like, okay, trying to do all of these things. One of the big things that came about of that is the January 22nd, we're doing a quick draw event at the college. And Brad Tyndall and the foundation provided the funding for us to do an event. And it's during the time in January when the CWC art department has it's a showcase of all the artists up in the gallery. So with that, there will be a quick draw contest with the artists. Part of the money will be prize money for the artists doing the drawings. And then part of it will be some of our businesses in town. There will be, Bar 10 will be providing a cash bar or drinks, and it's been approved through the college. They'll be bringing a permit to the city for that, and then other businesses.
That lit Kristen up.
And then there will be other ones providing food and stuff, and then there will be other things, the silent auction that people can buy. It will be from 5 to 7. So it's just a great way that the college, the city, the chamber work together to bring the community together for a fun event. So we're hoping to do a lot more of those things through the chamber. Bethany might have to come back up and explain a little bit. Is it Live Local, the selfie contest in December, where if you purchase things, if you go into stores and you purchase and you take a selfie and you tag yourself on I'm not sure which one, the chamber one too, then you can win chamber bucks and stuff to get people downtown Riverton taking selfies, putting it up, saying, oh, I got this here. And so that contest will be going on in December. So there's a lot of really good people on the chamber that are doing a nice job. We have a new administrative assistant, Laura Akers, that just started. So I think things are going in the right direction.
Super. Sounds great. Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to point out that I thought the quick draw competition was something completely different at the beginning of that conversation.
Let's get that right.
But I was still very interested. So I thought that was good.
Maybe we could have both.
Yeah, I think there are options there. There's some good marketing. As pointed out, we are one department head short today. Kyle is meeting with the airline. A lot of the work that we talk about, a lot of the employments is, we don't see where the sausage gets made a lot of the time. And it's these trips, it's these conversations. Our conversations at the airport level especially are constant. And we really appreciate all the work that council and airport board and Kyle and his people have done. But that's where he is, and so he is in warmer climates, so that's kind of nice.
How come we never get to go?
I guess we could go to the airport.
We get to go to Cheyenne.
We get to go to Cheyenne.
Yeah, what more would you want?
And speaking of it, we get to go to Cheyenne February 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
It's beautiful there this time of year.
Nice and warm.
It's lovely. We're really looking. I have a Hawaiian.
Take your
shirt that I'm
swimsuits.
wearing. But wham is that I believe there's still space if anybody is interested in attending. The mayor and I will attend. We are registered, so we're looking forward to that. Force meeting is on Monday, the 13th. I'm a little preemptive. We're not announcing a lot of the time who gets certain awards, but I wanted to draw some attention. Megan and Shanda from our court, we nominated them for the Sons of the American Revolution Law Enforcement Commendation Medals. I had to write all of that down because I was not going to remember it. When you look at your weekly reports and you look at the amount of work that goes through that court, these commendation medals are those that are meant to recognize those in law enforcement. And a lot of the time, we love our law enforcement, but we also forget that when the officer is done with the arrest or the citation, it's not where it stops. That's where more work begins. And that work is handled in that department. The volume that these ladies go through and that they consistently take care of is impressive. So they're much deserving, and we're really happy to be able to have them recognized. So I wanted to just point that out. They'll get their award on Friday, and we'll probably be posting some pictures of that, even if they let us. Staff will attend some ARPA training later this week. We have some Zoom training. There is a lot of funding going around. We all know this. We all hear about it on the radio. We get different pieces of information. The request from me to, I guess, not only council, but in general is we're trying to get all of that information that we can because it's complex. Not all of those things apply to us. Some do, some don't. Parts of them do, parts of them don't. If that information comes to you, we would appreciate it if you are comfortable sending a copy of that on, so we can put that in the mix and see where that can apply. If those funds are going to be here, we would like to have the opportunity to see if they fit some of our many projects. So any help you can give would be appreciated. We are continuing to train and look into those on a lot of different fronts. The mayor and I were able to attend an ambulance discussion last Wednesday. That was a really good conversation and is ongoing. There was also the DUI task force, the chief, mayor, and I all attended that as well. That was well attended and is ongoing. That's the second meeting. I think they're coming up with a name. I can't remember what the working name is, but that group is working towards DUI and substance abuse enforcement options. Mayor can also speak to that a great deal. He's been at those. Last item is that, just as a point of information, the holiday schedule for closures of City Hall is currently, there's the afternoon on the 23rd and all the 24th, and then New Year's is half day on the 30th and all day on the 31st. So we will be closed at that time. We're happy to provide help in advance, and there's a lot of ways to engage us, and we're looking to help anytime we can. With that, Your Honor, I think I've covered all my items. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have to have a council meeting on Tuesday, the 21st.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the option, it's not a heavy meeting. We can push off some things, but the suggestion's been made that maybe we could do that earlier in the day. I don't know if that's a good idea for any of you guys. we could do it at 1 o'clock, noon. We'd we could do it 5 o'clock. Any suggestions?
I'll be green and fuzzy and say I'd rather have it at the regular time, but
It makes sense too. Or we can keep it at 7 if that's what you want.
I'd rather go a little earlier.
Okay.
You do it 5?
It's a Tuesday, I could do
Say
whatever.
5:30 maybe, so we have time to get here.
Can 5:30 work into the schedule?
Yes, Your Honor, we can make it all work.
Okay, let's do it. You know, Tony takes us back, and weekly is a really great piece of information, and I appreciate staff for doing it. And the girls in the court, I'll tell you some things that I find really interesting. According to the document that we were given for weekly, there were 45 defendants on docket for the court, and we had 11 people show up that were summoned. We go on and list all of those citations, but then when you come down to it, this is the part that frustrates me in this job. Our people are put in danger's way. We currently have 6,848 open cases and a total of 2,401 active defendants. We have 1,943 defendants that have active warrants. So our police, when they pull over a car, this isn't just you got a taillight out. This is real business. And the other thing I'd like to point out, sometimes we don't give credit where it's due. I get a count on the building use, and the utilities has, in just a week's period of time, they see 231 people through the window. Most of us as retailers would love to have 20 people come in. And they have 20 service changes last week from one location to another. 33 people in the community development. The court had 68 people come in. I don't know where the Office of Other is, but they're fairly busy. 48 people went to the other room, and 45 to the police department. 445 people came into City Hall. And lots of times we think government doesn't do anything. And so I really do appreciate those, and those girls really do deserve, they push a lot of paper, and I think that's when we get in the room with the DWI and all the rest, this is a place we need to improve on. This is something we can do.
Your Honor, the other category is for general inquiries that we get at City Hall that do not pertain to utility billing, service transfer, to the other departments listed, and the clerk and HR office. It's general inquiries that we get from people coming into the office. Can you tell us directions to this place? Or where is my grandfather buried? Where do I go to file my divorce decree? Just those are the types of questions we're faced with every day, too.
And as simple as those sound and may be inconvenient, that's what we do. That's, we'll try to put you on the right course here, and we have wonderful staff that does that.
Your Honor, can we go back to our conversation about the time on the 21st? If, as a council, we could meet at 3 instead of 5, it'd allow all of our city employees to have some evening time before Christmas.
I'm for that. Can you make it work?
I'll make it work, whatever it needs.
Mr. Bailey can make it work. So
Is that
can
3
Mr.
for the
Ard.
finance committee, or is that 2:45 for finance?
We will have to do finance, right? That's the real reason. We got to pay the bills.
So 3 for finance.
So if we started at 3 o'clock, Mia, could we do finance first? Tony, is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Can everybody make 3?
I don't know, I have to change up my calendar again.
Change it again.
Kyle, can you make 3?
I will make 3.
I'll make 3. So I got to
I
get
will
back.
stop selling my land, rezoning it. I will be here.
you'll come in, we'll give you one free rezone.
We'll give you more. Hey, you forgot 2 of your Reese pieces.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna tell you.
hot dog. Thank you. Man, I was
Now
just,
he's happy.
I was down to my last kilocalorie.
I wanted to go back to the ribbon cutting at the city council. Tony, you were done?
Yes.
Were you not? Thank you. I really wanted to tell the seniors of Riverton thanks for what they do in using the senior citizens and for their willingness to be forward-looking. Mia sits on that board, and it's not easy to keep the money in place, and it's one of the first projects in Riverton that we actually put an endowment on. So it does take care of itself in large part. And so those are some of the things that we can do that are positive, and we need to do those things. And so the solar panels on the senior citizens building were funded with $36,000 from the Blue Sky, thank you. I should know Blue Sky. But the check's out in the lobby. We tried to cash it, it didn't go through. So we just put it on the wall.
The real one did go through, Your Honor.
The will and came, all right.
Because it did fix it in the little tube.
We couldn't get it in. The other thing is, we've talked extensively about the meeting that we had with the attorney. There's a lot of meetings we have that take a lot of time, and I appreciate Rick, I appreciate Tony for their input, and I appreciate the work that you do. And so, the other one that is, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around this, but Fremont County, out of 23 counties in the state of Wyoming, according to what they tell us, I find it hard to believe, but Fremont County has more DWIs than all the other counties put together.
Wow.
And so we're trying to sit into the meeting and make that work and make some changes there. And there's plenty of opportunity, and we appreciate anybody that's listening. If you have an idea, anything that we can do to make that work. And so there's the tree lighting was fantastic. Anybody that went it was worth your time and effort. Santa Claus showed up, and we appreciate Santa Claus for what he does. And we appreciate the fire department for bringing their big truck in, and they brought more than one. They had one to lift Santa Claus. It took a whole fire truck to do that. And then we had one that just came in and blocked traffic, and that was fun. And it was fun to see the community people that came out. We made some really wise choices about that, and we moved that up and got better weather than we did last year.
Yeah, quite a bit.
The weather was fabulous. The Chinese lanterns were fun, and that engagement committee does a wonderful job for Riverton, and we appreciate what they do. So, with that said, does staff have anything to add?
No, Your Honor.
No? Council? We'll stand adjourned at 8:46.